I finally broke my engine. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. As always, I'm Cameron from Audi C7 Owners, and if you're new to the channel, this is a heck of a video to start on. Unfortunately, you can't have the highs without the lows, I suppose, and this is a low point for the channel, but I'm not upset. As the title and the opening suggest, I had a catastrophic failure with my engine while testing the Merc Racing MRA 1900. Now let's stop there. The failure wasn't because of the supercharger. All right, let's just get that, clear the air. I don't want anybody running around and be like, oh, look, it blew it up. I know there's people in back channels that have been just salivating, waiting for me to have a failure of some kind. And you know, it is what it is. If this makes you happy, it speaks more about you than it does about me. So yeah, what I'm gonna do in this video is I'm going to backtrack to the beginning of talking with Jose from Merc Racing about testing the supercharger, what led up to the testing, how the testing was completed, and then I have a very special announcement about a collaboration going forward that I'm gonna give you guys at the end that I think will be really exciting for everyone. So let's backtrack to Alpine Volks Fair of 2023. Jose and I, if you guys don't know, if you're new to the channel, Jose from Merc Racing and I are really good friends. He's one of my favorite people I've ever met in the Volkswagen Audi community since I've been modifying cars since like 2003. He's just the kindest, just most willing to help person. He was the channel's first sponsor, and he took a chance on me and getting my channel off the ground. And if it wasn't for him, I don't think this channel would exist, truthfully, to be honest. So can't thank him enough. But we have been going to Alpine Volks Fair together with some of my friends for a couple years. We're going back again here this year. Hasn't officially been announced, but we already have our cabin booked anyways. He had his supercharger on his car leading into Helen's Alpine Volks Fair, Eurotripper's Alpine Volks Fair of 2023. And when I was on the way out to Helen, my car, what I've later learned, hit a rock that was causing my heat exchanger to lose fluid. And so I drove straight to his house because he had a spare and was planning on swapping it on the way to Helen. So drove to his house, ended up being able to fix mine, and it ran just fine. But while we were there, he was like, hey, I want you to drive my car. Which for me, I perked up because I knew he had his supercharger on his B8.5 S4. So I was stoked, but he warned me, he goes, I'm not sure how it's driving. Something feels a little bit off. He goes, he's like, first, let's go for a drive in your car. I want you to go drive around, floor it. I want to feel what your car feels like. So we get out there and we do that. And he's like, man, your car feels great. And I was like, well, cool. I feel like it's kind of where it needs to be. So he's like, get in the S4. I want you to drive it and tell me what you think. So I'm really excited to drive the Merc Racing Supercharged 3.0T, and we get in and start driving, and immediately I was like, something's wrong, Jose. This thing is slow. It should not be acting this way, and he agreed. And so we brought up VCDS. I just want to kind of go through some checks, and we got VCDS hooked up, and we checked his timing values basically, and his timing was way off on the car. It was way outside of where it should have been. And so we knew that at that point, testing that supercharger on his car any further was not going to be fruitful at all. So he already knew then he needed to get his engine out of the car, needed to redo all the timing. And while he had it out and was going to do that, he's like, I'm just going to take it, tear it down, redo valve seals, all sorts of stuff. I need to, do a refresh, especially going forward with the supercharger. But he still drove it to Alpine Volks Fair for the weekend, just tore up the mountains with us, and it, surprisingly, with how the reduction in power it had, it still did very well. Sounded wild. Everybody got to get an eyesight, or got to see it for the first time in person, which it drew a lot of attention. And then even like a few months later, we went to Tail of the Dragon for the National Audi meet for Audi Club North America, and tore through the Tail of the Dragon multiple times and just abused the car throughout that. And then finally, he decommissioned the car to take the engine out, and he took the supercharger off. Now, while we were at Tail of the Dragon hanging out for the weekend, that's when he and I really started talking. And he said, look, I want to send this to you to get it put on the car, to get some real world street car, daily driver type car data, because the only other car running it was the 034 B8 S4. Now, obviously that's like their built car. I don't know all the mods on Nate's car for that, but I knew he had cams and they were doing the testing, to hopefully be building a tune for Jose. But in terms of just a regular car, we didn't have that data. And so we had a really heavy conversation about the potentials, because tune wasn't finished at that time. This was months and months ago. Didn't really know what to expect. Didn't have much data at that time because it was very fresh in testing. And he told me, he said, Cameron, I don't know what this will do to your engine. This could potentially cause a catastrophic failure during testing. And I said, Jose, honestly, I need to rebuild an engine anyways to get into my car. I've got high mileage. I want to do that. My valve seals are pretty sure are shot because I never had any oil burning on wide open throttle. But the only time I'd see blue smoke come out of my exhaust is if I was like driving aggressively, or I had the RPMs up high and I just let the engine break down, like engine brake, and let it slow down in in the RPMs. And then at the end of that, if I touched the gas, that quick bit of vacuum, you could tell the valve seals were seeping oil and it would burn and come out. You can even look at my dyno video, which I did about a month before installing the MRA 1900, and see during those pulls, zero blue smoke on all of the wide open throttle pulls. And we even did one in 5th gear, so up to 160 miles an hour on the dyno. Not a single bit of blue smoke came out. The only time you kind of see a puff of smoke in one of the videos, it's gray, like carbon smoke, and that is typically from unburnt fuel. But no blue smoke until letting the RPMs come down, and as those high, as it kind of came down through the RPMs, and then gas was touched, a little bit of blue smoke, but that was it. So I was like, yeah, got a little bit of oil consumption issue, but overall my car's pretty healthy. I take very good care of it. I'm constantly monitoring every facet of it, data logging it often. I'm comfortable putting it on there with the risk that something might happen, because I'm planning on putting in another engine anyways. And if you don't know about that, I got a video on that. I got a donor engine from Audi 3.0 work on YouTube. He lives a couple hours away from me. That's Mike Soigné. Hopefully I pronounced your last name right. I hope I don't butcher it. But picked up a 2012 A6 engine from him because he took his out, because he rebuilt an engine with rods, pistons, cams, whole 9 yards. Go follow his video, because I'm going to be doing go follow his channel. So I'm going to be doing content with him going into the near future, and I'll explain that a little bit later as well. But he's a really good dude. He's going to have some really cool videos in regards to rebuilding these engines as well. So go follow him. Like now, pause this video, go do it now. Okay, cool. So I told Jose, let's do it. I'm aware of the risks. You need the data. I want to help you get the data. You can trust me. It's not like some random person, where we can work together on this. So we told 034 about 2 months prior to installing it that I was going to be testing it. They agreed. Jose came down. We installed the Merc Racing supercharger, which, you can go watch the video on the install, as well as a video of Jose discussing the parts of the MRA 1900, talking about why it makes it so special. And we had an install. We uploaded the 034 file that they sent us. Ended up having a cam position sensor go bad while we were doing the install. Had to swap that out, and it, sat there and purred and sounded great. So I was expecting to get a completed 93 base file. Now, obviously beta testing because it hadn't been released, but I was expecting to get a completed 93 file, like 034 says here. This is the 93 file we have. Data log it, make sure everything looks good, and then we would start performance testing in regards to quarter-mile times and hopefully getting some dyno pulls done with the Merc Racing MR 1800 on there. But unfortunately, that's not what we got. And I'm not insinuating anything of 034 or I'm trying to presume why we got the file that we did. I'm just telling you facts. We got it, we went out, we data logged it, and we did a quarter-mile pull, and the quarter-mile time for that pull was 11.87 seconds. As comparison, my OEM supercharger on this car, the fastest time I ever ran with it was an 11.59. And so I was like, I don't think we got the right file, or I don't think that we have a completed file. I'm not sure what's going on. And so we started working with 034 in doing revisions on this file. Now, I will say that 11.87 is disappointing, but at the same time, when we're looking at all the values, and by the way, all the data logs from the testing, at least a majority of them, are going to be in a link in the description, along with links to anything else I discuss in this video. And so you can go on there and look at all the data logs of testing, plus all my data logs with the OEM supercharger leading up to this. I've got a ton. But even with what I would call a detuned file, and it still ran 11.87 in higher temperatures and higher DA, that really gave us like promise, like, okay, you know what? It's still, you know, doing decently for what it is. But we need to start working on it. So we started data logging. The process of data logging and doing revisions, basically we sent the data log to Nate with 034. He would come up with a revision, send it back. And what he was asking of us was doing third gear pulls from low RPMs to redline. So I was doing them basically from like 1700 RPMs up to 7200 RPMs with my car. It's a ZF8 transmission in here. Now, keep in mind, that's pretty stressful on an engine. I'm not insinuating that that's what caused the failure, is anything related to the tune or whatnot. But unlike a turbocharged car where the boost is building gradually to peak, with the supercharged car, your boost is immediate and just almost fully there from the moment you throw onto the throttle. So we were at times towards the end seeing 28 PSI for the entire duration of the pull. But I was doing these pretty often. We did this testing for about 2 weeks, and I was doing third gear pulls almost daily. Sometimes twice a day, but I would say probably like 5 days out of 7 for those 2 weeks I was doing data logs like that. That is putting a very good amount of stress on this engine. 162,000 miles. It is high mileage engine, and the data logs looked good. Everything looked clean, but you know, it's going to do that until something gives. You know, once a piece of hardware that doesn't have a sensor attached to it, once that gives, you're good until you're not. So we were, but you know, in the beginning of the data log testing, we were fighting an issue that turned out to be the traction control in the vehicle. I wasn't disabling traction control fully while doing third gear pulls. It wasn't specifically told me, you know, hey, make sure traction control's off, which like I would obviously do on a quarter-mile pull. But in regards to third gear pulls, I didn't realize that affected anything. So once we figured that out, we started being able to add power to the car. It was feeling really, really good. Data logs looked good. So I asked Nate, hey, can I go out and do a quarter-mile pull to kind of get some performance testing? He said, yep, we're still trying to track down an issue that's causing the bypass valve to open for like the last 300-400 RPMs of the pull. But yeah, you're good to go. So on the way home from work, I decided to go get this done. I got the car fully warm up, and unfortunately, I did not data log this quarter-mile pull, as I've been data logging so much leading up to it. I just didn't even think about it. It's like, I just want to hook up my draggy, get a quarter-mile run, and see where we're at. So I went out to my spot, which is only a few minutes from my house, set it up, no cars around, out in my little slice of Mexico, and did my quarter-mile pull. And the quarter-mile pull went just fine, uneventful, until I let off the gas. And then as soon as I let off the gas, the EPC light came on and the car started shaking as if I had a very, very bad misfire. So pulled the car over immediately, popped the hood, turned it off, went and just did a visual inspection. Nothing looked out of place. There was no fluids pouring to the ground, nothing out of whack. So I hooked up my OBD11 and scanned it, and I had misfire in cylinder 4 and cylinder 5. Cleared the codes, turned the car back on, immediately cylinder 5 misfire popped back up. I checked my coolant levels, everything looked good there. I checked my divorce reservoir, fluid level looked good there. So it didn't appear that I was losing any coolant at all. There was nothing coming out of the tailpipe at that time. And so I was like, I'm only a few minutes from the house. Let me just limp it home, and I'll keep an eye on it, but I'll limp it home and we'll get to diagnosing this. There's no engine knock sounds. It other than the sound of it misfiring, it sounded really, really clean and smooth. And so I started going home. Now from this point to my house, it's a very dark drive. You can't really see much, but there's a gas station right before you get to my house. And it wasn't until I started passing the gas station to turn down the road to get to my house, which is only about a 1/10 of a mile away at this point, that I got into some light. And as I was going through there, I could just see smoke billowing out of the back of my car. And it was one of the worst feelings in the world seeing that. And I started just immediately pull over and shut it down, but my coolant temperatures looked good. There was no weird noises, and I got a whiff of it and I could tell that it was burning oil. It was just burning a massive amount of oil, but the live view of the data I was watching, everything looked safe. And I was like, I'm just gonna get it home. So I limped it back home, got into the garage, and immediately told Jose and Nate, hey, had a big failure, I'm gonna try and figure out what it is, and worked with Nate to start working on a diagnosis. So I pulled cylinder 5's coil pack, nothing on that. Pulled cylinder 5's spark plug, and that's where we started to get into something. I think I should have a picture of it right now. Cylinder 5 spark plug was just caked in burnt oil. You could tell it's been burning oil for a while. So from this point, I want to backtrack a little bit to give you guys kind of an insight into this. Before testing the MRI 1900, probably like 3 months beforehand, I swapped all of my coil packs and all of my spark plugs. They're all brand new BKR 9EIX spark plugs, gap to 0.026. And that 034 said that's fine. You know, I didn't need to change that at all. And they were all clean. When I pulled my old spark plugs out, not a single one had any signs of ash fouling or burning any kind of carbon or any kind of oil or anything like that. So it was telling me I wasn't getting crazy amounts of oil blow by from any of the piston rings of the cylinders or anything like that. So that means in a matter of 3 months time, almost maybe 3.5 months time, something changed and I was starting to burn a lot of oil in cylinder 5. I can't say that doing this testing and the high amounts of third gear pulls with that high amount of stress started to cause this failure, because there's no way for me to prove that. It is a large amount of stress on the engine and on all of the components of it. So I can't say that burning of oil in cylinder 5 started while doing this testing, but I will say in the first week of doing these tests, these revisions and data logs, what I started to notice when I wasn't driving aggressively, just normal daily driving, car and drive, just like even under like 45 miles an hour, pulling up to an intersection, when I come to a stop, blue smoke would come out of the exhaust. And that's different from beforehand, where I would only see blue smoke, burning oil coming out of the exhaust if I was really driving aggressively and letting the RPMs hang and slow down on their own. And then touching the gas, creating that vacuum, pulling oil through the vacuum or the valve seals, the exhaust valve seals. This was just normal driving, and then every time I stopped, blue smoke would come out. And I brought that concern up with Jose. I said, hey, what do you think about this? And he's like, engine's kind of old, high mileage. We know your valve seals are probably worn up a little bit. This supercharger's creating a lot more CFM, probably a lot more vacuum. That's probably what it is. The data logs look good. So, we're just going to keep going on. And there's obviously a lot of hindsight 2020 here, but at that time, I was totally fine with it. And then had the failure the following week. So yeah, I can't say that my cylinder started burning oil during testing or not. I kind of, feel that it makes sense, but I can't prove it. And it is what it is. So anyways, after I pulled that spark plug, I was like, let's put in a new spark plug just to see, maybe we'll get lucky. And I put in the new spark plug, I cleared the codes out and started the car. No check engine light for a misfire came on, but the car was still running as if it had a misfire. Now, obviously I didn't drive anywhere. Blue smoke started just pouring out of the back of the exhaust. And I was like, nope, I'm done, shutting it down. I'm not gonna do this anymore. Pulled that new spark plug out, and it is just covered in new oil. And the other thing I forgot to mention is, while doing this, it was consuming oil rapidly. I was losing a lot of oil very rapidly, and I could tell that with the amount that was burning out of the tailpipe, but I had to add oil and added the oil, and that's why I saw fresh oil. When I say fresh, fresh in color on that new spark plug, and I just knew I was having lots of oil getting into the cylinder 5 combustion chamber. So from here, got a bore scope. I got one that hooks up to my camera, and I'm gonna show you these videos as I'm talking here. I put it in there, and the first thing that we looked at, because Jose came down to help me diagnose, we checked the edge where the cylinder meets the head, and you can see the head gasket. That's that thin piece of metal, and we rotated it around the whole circumference of the cylinder, and we come to a spot where you can see there's just oil kind of coming down the cylinder wall. Without taking it apart, we can't be sure, but Jose was like, that maybe is potential head lift or head gasket failure. And so there's a possibility of that. This was, like I said, we were seeing 28 PSI at this point from the get-go all the way through a pull. So that is a lot on this engine, especially a stock engine. But at the same time, as we start going into these other videos, we can see some scoring marks on the cylinder. We can see, you know, some damage to the cylinder wall. Nothing crazy, no crazy gouges or anything, but definitely marks in the allyl, that's how you say it, what it's made out of. So then I started to inspect the actual piston head. And for comparison, here's a video from Jose at Merc Racing showing a cleaned OEM piston head, and you can see these kind of wings on the side that kind of come up. Keep that in mind as we look at this video going forward, my borescope camera video, because I don't want you to think there's anything missing in the pistons. The pistons appear to be completely intact without any damage. There's obviously oil sitting on there, and that can be misleading when you're looking through the camera, but going around the whole edge, it doesn't seem like there's any damage to the piston itself. And given the marks on the cylinder wall, what we believe happened, especially in discussing with some other people that have a lot of experience with these engines, is that it was likely a complete and total failure of cylinder 5's piston rings. They finally gave out. That would allow the oil just to blow by, getting into the combustion chamber, burning a ton of oil. That would explain the amount on the spark plug, especially if it was starting to let go a little bit in the first week of testing and then finally had a complete failure, resulting in my catastrophic failure that evening. We won't know until we get it torn apart, and I have a plan on doing that. I'll tell you about in a little bit. But, so yeah. Complete catastrophic total failure of my engine in cylinder 5. The other cylinders all look good. Spark plugs look good. It was just that one. Car is now grounded. So where do we go from here? If you've been following the channel for a long time, you know that I've been planning on rebuilding an engine. I've got a donor engine from Audi 3.0 work. Once again, please go follow his channel. I've got that sitting right over here. And I was planning on doing a complete video on tearing it all the way down to the crankshaft, and then rebuilding it myself with the help of knowledgeable people. That likely would have taken me months and months and months to do. Now that I don't have any engine that is running for my car, I need to speed up the process. So with the help of Jackal Motorsports, those guys are really good friends with AM Tuned out of Pompano Beach, Florida. If you're unfamiliar with AM Tuned, Alex owns it. I can't pronounce your last name, Alex, correctly. I don't want to butcher it, but I think it's like Muscap. I don't know. Anyways, Alex from AM Tuned and we have gone into a partnership, and AM Tuned is going to be rebuilding my engine for me. And this is incredibly exciting, and here's why. AM Tuned is known for building incredibly well done 4.2 liter boosted engines. And if you're unfamiliar with those, the 4.2 liter 8-cylinder engine that Audi produced in the B6, B7 S4s sounds incredible, but very underwhelming in power and performance compared to even like 4-cylinder turbo cars. Unfortunately, that just was a thing of the time there. And so Jackal Motorsports and AM Tuned have collaborated for many years building turnkey packages where you send them the car, they completely rebuild the engine, they put their turbo kit or their supercharger kit on it, and you get a daily driving, reliable, anywhere from like 550 wheel horsepower up to like 900 something wheel horsepower vehicles. I think AM Tuned has the highest horsepower 4.2 liter engine either in North America or possibly the world. Hopefully I'll have some data popping up here with specifics on that. I should have done my research before filming this video, but in any case, these things are absolute monsters. You can go on Jackal's Instagram and check out the videos of their boosted, their turbocharged, I think it's a B6 S4 that he's got. It's absolutely just gnarly. Every time I see a video, I'm just like, I need one of those. But in any case, I am fortunate enough to collaborate with AM Tuned, and they've agreed for me to send my engine to them, and they're going to rebuild it. And when I say rebuild, I don't just mean to OEM spec. They are going to install their upgraded forged connecting rods, which are OEM connecting rods are forged, but they're still not as strong as these. So upgraded forged connecting rods, they're forged pistons, and he's going to be doing a complete head rebuild, their stage 2 head rebuild on my car. So when I get this engine back, it is going to be set up for a lot of really cool opportunities going into the future. And there's a lot on this engine that is going to be coming out in general in the 3OT supercharged community over the next few years that are going to be really exciting. So I'm going to have an amazing foundation to build off of. Turnaround time once it gets the engine is about 8 to 10 weeks. So my car's going to be down for a little bit. My hope is that I get it back in time to put it in the car and properly break in the new engine before Alpine Volks Fair, which is usually in the middle of May. Hasn't been officially announced, but I'm banking on it happening. I'm really hoping to be able to have it out there. I'm hoping that I have the opportunity to start testing the MRA 1900 again on the car, because from the testing we could see that there is a lot of potential for that supercharger. I know you guys are salivating for results about that thing. If you have expectations of it, I don't know what your expectations are, but what I can tell you is that there's going to be some really cool information about it coming out very soon. So just stick with it. But hopefully I'll get a chance to test that back on there with a fully rebuilt engine that is, reinforced and ready to go. The only thing I'm not doing that Alex from AM Tuned offers is sleeving the engine, because that just puts me way out of my price range. This is going to be a very expensive project for me as it is, with rebuilding this and putting all the upgrades on it. But sleeving it, I can't do that, unfortunately. So it is what it is. I think we'll be fine. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a really cool process. Going forward, some things you can expect to see in the near future. I'm going to have a video basically getting the engine I'm sending to him prepped, so I can show you, like, if you guys want to do this as well and you want to get your car or your engine rebuilt by him and upgraded, you have to have your engine torn down to a specific point. You have to have all the accessories brought off, removed from it. I'm going to show you how to do that on the donor engine. I'm going to show you how I mount it to a pallet to be able to attach to it and ship off to them. I'm in North Carolina, they're in Pompano Beach, Florida. So I'm gonna talk about the shipping process, everything on getting my engine to them. Then hopefully over the next few weeks, as they get a hold of it and they test it and they tear it down and rebuild it, I'll get some content from Alex that I can put together and show the process of what's going on there. I'm also hoping to start doing some live chats with people with these companies. I've unintentionally kind of built this community of incredible brands and companies that are all like working around each other and together at times and things like that. And I think there's some really influential people that you guys might like to hear from. So maybe I can get Alex onto a live chat to talk about the rebuild process, and he can talk about really what's so special about the products he offers. Maybe I can get some of the tuners on board and they can talk about, things that they're working on and talk about their products. So if there's anybody in particular you'd like to hear from in one of these live chats, please comment below and let me know. Additionally, going to be working with Michael Saunier once again from Audi 3.0 work. Once again, go follow his channel. And what we're going to be doing is he's going to go get a flatbed. We're going to meet up one day. We're going to tow my car over to his family's garage that is really close to me. We're going to put the car up on a lift, and we're going to film a video on dropping the engine and transmission with the subframe and showing you how to remove this engine. We were going to do it in my garage, but it's going to be way easier on a lift and dropping it down with the subframe. So hopefully I'll have a video showing that. And then after that, we're going to get a video tearing down this engine and getting to the root cause of the failure, because he's going to get this engine, and I think he's planning on sleeving the block anyways. So that'll be a really cool video where we do get to show you a full teardown of the engine, and we can know once and for all, like, did the head gasket fail? Did the head lift? Was it just piston ring failure? We'll get to that and see if we find anything else that's surprising. So yeah, that's really exciting. I'm really looking forward to working with him on that. I'm super excited to be working with Alex from AM Tuned. And yeah, there's just a bunch of other stuff that this coming year, I hope comes to fruition, so to speak. I'm really excited to bring you guys a lot of interesting things. Thank you for sticking with me for this long. I started this channel, I think, in January of 2019. It's February of 2024. That means we've gone over 5 years. I can't thank you guys enough for the support. Everything I do with this channel is directly funded from the channel itself. So if you want to help out with the engine build process, all you got to do is leave a comment, like the video, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, tell your friends about it, share the video links for me. That's all super, super helpful. But yeah, gonna end here. Hope you guys are excited about what's to come, and I will see you on the next Audi C7 Owners video.